They thought it was funny. They handed her a mop instead of a rifle, and laughed, but what they didn't know was that the girl they mocked carried a secret strength, a legacy no one could see. By the end of this story, even the commander himself would stand frozen and salute her. If you love untold emotional stories of courage and respect, make sure to hit subscribe because the story you're about to hear, you will never forget. They laughed when she walked into the training camp. Not because she was weak, not because she didn't belong, but because, in their eyes, she didn't look like someone who could ever wear the uniform. Her name was Alina Carter, the daughter of a fisherman's widow, thin, quiet, with eyes that carried too much grief for her age. The others came from military families, sons and daughters of generals and officers. They had grown up in bases, marched in parades before they could even spell the word discipline. Alina, she had grown up scrubbing boats, helping her mother sell fish at dawn, and reading her late father's letters at night. When training began, they mocked her clumsy boots, her silence during meals, her refusal to laugh at their cruel jokes, and when the squad leaders decided to play a trick, they pushed the idea with smirks. Let's put her on cleaner duty. One whispered, yeah, let her scrub floors. That's all she's good for. Another chuckled. And so it happened. While others trained with rifles, while they ran drills in the sun, Alina was handed a mop, a bucket. In a dirty barracks hallway, the mocking eyes followed her as she knelt on the floor, her hands red from scrubbing. Her peers thought they had broken her, but Alina said nothing. Every stroke of the mop was steady. Every bucket she carried was lifted without complaint. And if anyone looked closely, they might have seen something unsettling in her silence, not weakness, but strength. She was not scrubbing floors. She was enduring. She was waiting. Alina's hands burned from scrubbing. The wooden handle of the mop dug into her palms, raising blisters that stung with every movement. Still, she said nothing. The others passed by, tossing remarks. Careful, cleaner girl. You missed a spot. Better shine it well. Maybe one day we'll let you polish our boots. They laughed, loud and careless. But Alina never flinched. She kept her back straight, her eyes lowered, her pace steady. To them, it was silence born from fear. But to Alina, it was discipline. When the halls emptied, when the laughter faded, she allowed herself a moment of pause. From her pocket, she pulled out a folded piece of paper, aged, worn, nearly torn at the edges. Her father's last letter. Alina, if you are reading this, know that strength is not measured by how loud you speak, but by how much you can endure without breaking. Someday, you will face a world that laughs at you. Endure it, and when the time comes, show them who you are. Her father had never come back from deployment. A war in a desert far from home had swallowed him whole. All she had left were his words, his medals, and the echo of his voice in her heart. That was why she was here. Not for the approval of arrogant cadets, not even for a shiny uniform, but because she carried his blood. Every bucket she carried, every floor she scrubbed, every insult she endured, it wasn't breaking her. It was building her. And though no one saw it yet, the commander would. Morning inspection. The recruits lined up in the yard, boots polished, rifles gleaming. Their chatter fell silent as the SEAL commander approached. Tall, broad-shouldered, his eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. Alina stood at the far end of the line. She had no rifle, no weapon, no badge of pride, only the mop and bucket that still marked her as the cleaner. A few recruits smirked, whispering, bet she doesn't even know how to stand at attention. She'll trip over her own boots. But when the commander's boots crunched against the gravel, Alina moved her body. Without hesitation, snapped into perfect formation, back straight, chin lifted, eyes locked forward. Not an inch of fear, not a tremor of doubt. It was flawless, too flawless. The recruits blinked, confused. Where had she learned that? How could the cleaner girl stand with such precision, as if she had marched beside soldiers her whole life? The commander paused in front of her. His gaze lingered. A flicker of something crossed his face. Recognition, maybe, or memory. But he said nothing, only nodded once, before continuing down the line. The recruits stayed frozen in silence. For the first time, they didn't laugh. They didn't mock. Because in that single stance, Alina had shattered their illusion of her weakness. She was not just a girl with a mop. She was a soldier waiting to be seen. The day heat pressed heavy over the camp when the alarm sounded. A surprise drill. Obstacle. Rescue. The recruits rushed to the field, excitement and nerves mixing in their voices. Some joked, some cursed, some tightened their laces. But she picked up no gear. She wasn't even assigned to the drill. To them, she was still the cleaner. Then the commander's voice boomed. In real battle, no one is excused. Everyone runs the drill. Even her. The recruits burst into laughter. Perfect. Let's see the mop girl climb a wall. She won't make it past the first rope. The whistle blew. The course was brutal, crawling under barbed wire, scaling a 10-foot wall, hauling sandbags. Carrying a simulated casualty across uneven ground, the recruits charged forward. Some slipped, some cursed, some fell behind. But Alina moved differently. Her body was smaller, but faster. She didn't waste a single ounce of motion. Where others used brute force, she used precision. Where others fought the wall, she flowed over it like water. When a recruit ahead of her struggled under the weight of the sandbag, Alina didn't hesitate. She lifted part of the load onto her own shoulders. Her legs trembled, but she didn't stop. At the final stage, carrying a wounded trainee across the field, most recruits stumbled. Alina bent low, secured the man's arm over her shoulders, and carried him with quiet strength, step after step. By the end, her face dripped with sweat. Her arms shook with exhaustion, but she crossed the line first. The laughter had vanished. No one dared mock her now. The cleaner girl had just outperformed them all. And high above, the commander's eyes followed her every move. Unblinking, he knew exactly what he was seeing. The recruits stood gasping for breath. Some had collapsed to the ground. Others leaned on their knees, sweat pouring from their foreheads. But Alina stood tall. Her chest rose and fell heavily, yet her eyes stayed fixed ahead, steady as steel. Silence settled over the field. The laughter that once followed her everywhere was gone. Even the smirks had vanished. The SEAL commander walked forward, his boots crushing the gravel beneath him. Step by step, he closed the distance until he stood directly in front of her. The recruits waited, expecting a lecture, maybe even a dismissal, but instead, he stopped. He looked at her, not as a cleaner, not as a recruit, but as something more. Then, in front of everyone, the commander lifted his hand and saluted. The world froze. Every recruit stared, eyes wide, mouths parted. The same men and women who had mocked her, who had shoved the mop into her hands, now stood paralyzed as the highest authority on the field gave Alina the honor no one expected. Her lips trembled, just slightly. For a moment, she saw her father's face in the commander's eyes, as if his spirit stood with her now. The commander's voice cut through the air, deep and unshakable. Respect is not given by birth, nor by name. It is earned, and she has earned it. Not a single recruit dared to laugh again. Not after that. The salute lingered for a long moment. Then the commander lowered his hand, but his eyes never left Elena's Carter. He said slowly. The name rolled off his tongue like an old memory. Elena's head tilted, surprised. Few here even knew her last name. The commander's voice softened, the kind of tone that was almost never heard on the training field. I served with your father. Gasps rippled through the recruits. The commander continued, his voice steady but touched with something rare, respect. He was a man of courage, a soldier who never asked for recognition. He carried others when he was broken himself. I watched him give everything, and I see him in you. Elena's throat tightened. The letter in her pocket felt heavier than ever. For years, she had carried it as her private compass, a whisper of the man she had lost. And now, in front of everyone, that man's shadow stood tall again, not through medals or stories, but through her. The commander's gaze swept over the recruits. You mocked her because you thought she was weak, but what you failed to see is that true strength is quiet, until the moment it is needed. No one dared to move, no one dared to speak. For the first time, the recruits understood who Alina really was, not a cleaner, not a joke, but the daughter of a soldier, and a soldier in her own right. As the sun dipped low and painted the sky in fire, Alina stood straighter than ever. She was no longer the girl with the mop. She was the living proof of her father's legacy, and from that day on, no one laughed again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon because more stories of courage, sacrifice, and hidden strength are on the way.